Hey, Doug.
How you doing?
Okay, yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. A little chilly today, but you go with the flow.
That's it. That's it. You go with the flow. Thanks for coming on, and please accept my apologies for Monday.
Oh, that's all right. I go with the flow.
Yeah. I'm glad that you were still available to come on today, at least. Um, yeah. What can I say? Sometimes technology has its moments. It has its flaws.
Yeah, it certainly does.
The whole world has its flaws. You know, nothing is
Yes,
perfect.
that's right. We're a long
Yeah, but
ways
how was
from.
your?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. You can continue.
I was
No,
just
no,
going to
no. Go.
say. Yeah, I was just going to say we've got a long ways to go before we get to perfection. So
Yeah. I was on a panel last night, more or less on the same topic. And it's a panel around, it was created by myself and another author from Canada, Don Sawyer. I'm not sure you're familiar with him. He's also on the Mickey as well. So we put a panel together, which is called Creating Team Human. And, it's all about bringing unity around the world. There's many components to it, but one conclusion we have is that it will never be concluded.
yeah,
What we're doing, as a lot of people out there in the world are doing, is like the foundation to make the world a better place. But it's going to take many generations after us to actually get to that point. All we can do is our best now, is putting our message out there and see where it goes from there. But it's going to take time. It's not something that's going to conclude next week or next month or next year. We were fortunate to have a guest also who's currently in Jordan at the moment. So she's in the middle of what's happening, in Syria. So yeah, we got a long way to go. But I mean, it's a pleasure to have you on. It's going to be an impactful show because the topics that you focus on, I am really intrigued about. And it's what actually made me start my own consulting agency within the music business. But we'll get to that. And when we conclude this show, I would love to also invite you on another podcast that I also co-host on the topic of PTSD. But we're going to get to that. Now I'm going to get your thoughts on it. But I would love to also invite you on that podcast. But at the end of the show, I'll bring it up. And, if you're willing enough, to please join us in January because it's a topic we want to touch on. So then, or I might as well just bring it up now instead of the end. So the podcast is called Talking Back to Suicide. Also Diana, or she loves to be called Diana, but it's Diane Kaufman. She's also from the States, Oregon. You are in the States, correct?
no, I'm in Canada.
You're in Canada also. Canada.
Yeah.
My apologies. Okay, Canada. So she's from the States. She's from Oregon. So she was also one of my first guests on the podcast this year when I started doing interviews. And then we also decided to put, our own podcast together, just touching on the topic of suicide. And we know that PTSD, especially with the troops coming back from war, how it affects them. So we've had like a lot of awesome guests on the show. So when we do like our solo shows, PTSD is one of the topics that we like want to get to, but we never ever got to it. Like even this past Tuesday, so it's every Tuesday, but we never quite get to it because we always get like caught up on another topic, related to suicide. But I guess this is just the universe working its magic again, because after I read about you and your history with PTSD and how you are focused on the topic, there was a reason we never discussed it, because I was meant to meet you, because I mean you can share with us so much more about the topic itself, on that podcast with that audience. But I mean, let's get to it. So
Okay.
before we get to your artistic career and your book, you are not alone. Let's go back to day one. Like, where did it all start for you as an author? Like
Oh
way.
gosh. Yeah.
Hopefully, you
It
can still
goes.
remember way back.
Well,
Yeah.
I can remember the sort of the reasons why, and it was when I had gone through the Royal Canadian Mounted Police training, we did it in what they call a troop. So there was 32 of us that went through, and you developed a bond with those 32 people. In fact, some of my troop mates, as we called them, are still meeting face to face even today to be able to, to keep the relationship alive and that. But how the connection to the book came to be was one of my troop mates, Jim, was actually doing motivational messages to his children every morning. He would send them these motivational messages, and he eventually ended up taking all of those messages and turning it into a book. And so he had said, he knew that I was doing lots of writing various blog messages, and I had a blog going, and I was doing lots of stuff on mentoring and stuff like that. And he had said, why don't you take all that stuff and make it into a book? And so that was the start of my writing career. And I, had a ghostwriter who helped me gather all the material together and helped me get through the publishing process and stuff like that. So that's kind of, really that's how it got started. Was I blame it all on Jim, because he's the guy that got me going down that path.
Yeah. And you haven't stopped since then?
I had a brief period where I wasn't writing, and then same sort of thing. I ran into some folks, and they said, you, with your mentoring experience and how you could be of value, where you could be working with people who are, that could use some support, certainly from the grieving part of it, that, you should write another book that's going to be able to help people. So that's how I came to write You Are Not Alone, which was that. And now my third book that we're in the manuscript editing process. That's just taking that whole story, that whole messaging to another level.
Yeah. I guess, for many of us, there's a gem in our lives that sparked, a form of passion that lights a fire within our soul. It's just a matter of someone just to get you in that direction, or someone to say, why don't you do this? And then you realize yourself, yeah, well, why not?
Yeah.
I could actually be good at this. This is probably something I'm going to enjoy and love. And I mean, the fact that you have still continued with it, clearly it's a passion of yours, writing at least, and then also mentoring.
Well, a large part of it for me is there's a story to be told, and that's what my purpose is to take that story and share it with everyone else. And for me, that's very therapeutic. That's when I tell stories of, my wife Deborah passing in 2021. That comes from the heart, and it being able to talk about it and share that is very, very therapeutic.
Yeah, I can agree. It's impactful, people. I mean, when it comes to motivation in general, or being a mentor, if you're giving an organic story of something that's actually truly happened in your life, that's how you're actually going to connect with a larger audience, because then they know, okay, Doug actually understands what I'm feeling. He's not just an author who's writing about something based on research, because it's two different things. If you're writing something just based on research, but you haven't actually gone through it yourself and experienced those dark emotions and facing those demons, people are not really going to relate to you that much. And it's in the writing itself that people actually pick up, especially these days, you can read something and you can be like, nah, he gets it. Or you can read something else and be like, nah, wait, you know what? This person really doesn't get it. He's just writing about it, based on research.
Yeah.
So organic stories go a long way, and it does impact people's lives, and it does, get them going in the correct direction to get their life together. So yeah, big ups on that, man. Big ups on that. Proud of what you're doing with that and keeping your writing organic, your work organic, your brand organic.
Yeah, everything. Because you just when you were talking there, I was having a flashback to I spoke. I forget. Oh, it's a number of years ago, but I spoke at it was a One World Summit for women, and I ended up I spoke at that conference. It was about a 20-minute, almost like a TED Talk type format. But and long story short was that at the end of I told, I think it was 4 different stories, and at the end of my time on the stage, I actually had ladies coming up to me and saying, "That was me that you were talking about. I could see myself in your story." And I went, "Oh my God, he knows more about me than probably somebody else does." And so it was really, I went, there's a, I have messages to share, and here's a way to do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. See, there's an example right there. Pick up. Yeah, sorry, people pick it up. They pick it up when someone is or has been in their shoes before. For like just going into your book, You Are Not Alone. Mental illness is such a critical topic, globally, which is what inspired me to become a co-host on Talking Back to Suicide. But prior to me actually joining that podcast, and why I started podcasting, not only communicating, since I come from the background of music and being in the music business and being in the creative space, and I'm so grateful, now that I can also chat with other creators such as yourself, authors, on the podcast. But as I started to move along in my own career, I realized that I wasn't going to excel or wasn't going to live a fulfilling life no matter how much success I could find for myself in the music industry. I first didn't fix what was going on up here. This
Yeah,
was holding me back from so much. And then I evaluated the music industry, dating back to the days of Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, Tina Turner, so on. And then fast forward, to mainstream artists today who have committed suicide, who are under who are addicted to drugs and alcohol, who have committed suicide as well. And I realized as I was doing this research that it was because they never fixed what was up here first before they could actually pursue with their career. So on the podcast itself, I started to touch mostly on mental illness, on fixing up here first. And this was also me talking from personal experience as well, because throughout my life, the traumas that has happened, whether it happened in family, whether it happened with friends, whether it happened in my school life, um, I never really go backwards to fix it, you know. And it was an incident that happened in 2018 that made me really ask the question of, why am I behaving in this manner? Why am I reacting in this manner? And then I started to do my own research, and then I went down this like spiritual road, and I started to, focus on my subconscious mind, reprogramming my subconscious mind. And I mean, I'm talking about using tactics that are free, it's out there. Nature, for an example, you know, um, meditation, not only your
mhm.
standard like morning meditation, but also reprogramming my subconscious while I'm sleeping, reading more up on it, on what I can do on a day to day basis. And from 2019 onwards, my behavior started to change. I mean, prior to that, it'll take like something so petty where I would react in such a, you know, I wouldn't say maybe verbally violent, not physically violent, but verbally violent to a situation where these days I'm like calm about it, you know, calm about it. And then I would also be in situations where I would also say maybe have like, some alcohol, for example. But because my subconscious, my mind was messed up and had that chemical imbalance because of that trauma, I would react violently, you know? I would react violently. And anyone who knows me from school till date will know how my life is, where these days I don't react in that manner because I focus. So I know you are also very clued up on that topic itself. So do you mind like elaborating, based on what I've told you, from my personal experience on that trauma?
Well, I turned to alcohol to as sort of the solution to the trauma that I was dealing with, and so to sort of set the stage was the fact that during my time serving in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, there were times where I was located or stationed in small communities where it was just myself and my family, and there was no support structure in place to be able to help when you had a traumatic event that took place. Like I tell the story of a young lad that I knew very well in a small community who had some great news to share with his parents, and ended up going home to do that, only to find that they had been drinking to excess, and as a result of that, they weren't in a position to provide him what he needed, and so he took his own life, so death by suicide. And then the story goes on from there, because I ended up, because it was a small community, I had to, my wife Deborah as my partner, we had to transport his body to the nearest morgue, 8 hours away, minus 40 Celsius weather, gravel road, the whole 9 yards. Like, if you couldn't ask for a worse situation to be in, and what I did, so very traumatic, having to obviously deal with investigating his death, and then having to transport his body and that to like I said, to the morgue. That was a very traumatic experience for me to have to deal with, and we made the trip to the morgue and came back, because Deborah was with me. And when we got back, I went back to my residence, went to the cabinet that I had all my liquor stored in, and I grabbed a bottle of Scotch whiskey and took the cap off, threw it away, and I drank the bottle of whiskey, because I thought, I thought that this was going to be the solution, and all it did was mask my behaviors, it masked my feelings, and I wasn't dealing with the root cause of the pain that I was going through and suffering.
So you and I went down a similar boat.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also times where, I'll be completely honest. The podcast is like 100% organic. There's nothing I hold back with my life as well. Recently I also had like sort of a relapse where something happened and it affected me, where I wanted to actually like numb any form of feeling I was having, so but at least, I managed to get through it faster because of past experience, where it doesn't take you now a year or 2 years to get past it. It took me 3 weeks to get past it. 3 weeks is still long, but at least I still got past it. And for 3 weeks in a row, I mean, I was still doing my day-to-day duties. I was still showing up for my podcast, but there was still stuff that was like going on inside because of this recent event that caused some trauma, for me emotionally. And then the only way, or the only solution I thought for myself was, to drink alcohol, to consume alcohol, and in that moment it works, it numbs all your feelings, you feel isolated, nothing matters anymore. But once again, I woke up one Sunday, I've mentioned this also. I think it's on the Talking Back. Yes, it was on the Talking Back to Suicide podcast that I mentioned this. I woke up, went on for 3 weeks, each and every single day. And I woke up the one Sunday, that last Sunday of the 3 weeks, and looked myself in the mirror and I said, Kino, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing right now? What are you becoming? Is it worth it? You've worked so hard to reprogram yourself, develop yourself, and you're going down such a positive road. What are you doing? And it was at that moment, it just stopped, just stopped. And I just came back to the reality I wanted to be in, so I just wanted to also throw that out there. For you. So like you, I mean, for you, when you drank that bottle of whiskey, I'm sure you must have after that also had like some sort of realization, like, Doug, what are you doing?
Well, you know what it was I think alcohol had become my crutch, and that any time that things were not going in the direction I felt that they should, or that I had this stuff bottled up inside me and I didn't know what to do with it, the alcohol was sort of my interim solution to the pain and suffering that I was going through. And that's the one thing, that one of the messages that I try to get across to people is that, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to reach out and say, I need help. And there will be somebody that's there to help you, and, I encourage people that if, you're caught up in sort of that treadmill and you're trying to figure, I just don't know how I'm going to deal with this. Reach out to somebody, get a hold of me, get a hold of you, and be able to say, this is what I'm experiencing. What do I need to do in order to make it go away? What do I need to do to make it better? And the point that I will reiterate over and over again is, number one is it's okay to ask for help. And number two, don't keep stuff bottled up inside. You need to talk. You've got to be able to talk your way through things. You need to be able to talk about, today's not a good day. This is, today's not a good day because of this or because of that, so there's all kinds of reasons why you need to sort of have that conversation and just be mindful of, people's body language, because sometimes if you pick up on the body language that maybe things aren't quite right, you can kind of get a jump start on helping them a little bit quicker than if you kind of wait for folks to come back and for them to come back and say, oh, hey, by the way, I think I need help. Can we talk?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Ask for help. There's no shame in asking for help from anyone. Even a complete stranger, if you pick up that, look, someone has a good spiritual vibe going on, and that happens a lot, with me as well, where like a random person will just like start speaking to me about something that's going on in their life right now. But I mean, being the people that we are, and why we are here in this, this dimension on Earth right now, our purpose, we sort of, even if we don't know much about the topic at hand, just that encouragement that you give to people, sort of changes the dynamic of it all.
Yeah.
So when it comes to how you said that mentoring helps with mental illness, so this is based also now on your personal experience when you were going through certain things, negative feelings, emotions, you seeked out mentors to actually help you first. Is that where it like all started?
I did search, but there was really no like mentors from a mentoring perspective. There wasn't anyone that I could see or find that was actually dealing with mentoring and mental health. And so that's kind of been sort of my crusade, for lack of a better choice of words, is that I'm trying to heighten or raise the awareness that mentoring, it needs to be part of the support structure for mental health. And I know people are going to say, oh, gee, I don't understand what he's talking about. Here's an example. You're experiencing some mental health issues. So you go to your psychologist, your psychiatrist, a counselor, or whatever, looking for help, and they're doing some good things for you. They're providing you a safe place for you to have a conversation and all that sort of stuff. And then they tell you that here's the not so good news is, okay, I'm going to schedule you to come and see me in 4 months' time. 4 months.
Yeah.
So the mentoring part, that's where the mentor is part of that support structure, is that you have a mentor, and it depends on a mentor for what, but you have a mentor that can walk beside you for that 4-month time period to listen and hear, not to prescribe or diagnose or anything like that, but just to walk beside you, to listen and hear what it is you're dealing with, and maybe, offer guidance, but very, very carefully, because, the one thing I always tell people who are mentors wanting to work in the mental health space is that make sure you don't cross the line into, where somebody should actually be talking to a professional, a psychologist or a psychiatrist. So there, so that's kind of been the story. Excuse me, the story or the direction that I'm going with mentoring and mental health.
Yeah. So it's not that I tend to criticize psychologists. Like, when, as I said, when I started focusing on mental health because of my own personal experience and what I wanted to do for independent artists out there, to establish their career the correct way, with first starting with fixing what's up here before we actually jump into studio. You 100% right on that point where the psychologist, even if it's not 4 months, but let's just say you're going to see a psychologist once a week. So you're in a traumatic situation, and let's say, hypothetically speaking, now the trauma is actually happening at home. Now you go in, you see your psychologist, cool, you have an awesome session, he or she is listening to you. You walk out of there, you're feeling, much more better. Your self-esteem is boosted a bit. You've got clarity on a few things. But then you go back home where the trauma actually first, initiated. For me, I feel it sort of now restarts. It restarts the moment you get back home. It restarts. And now you're only going to see your psychologist in the next week. But I'm going to give credit also where it's due. I have witnessed that some psychologists are now, communicating with their patients online via WhatsApp. So, for an example, something I've witnessed is the trauma a young lady was going through. If something wasn't, whether she was feeling something or the trauma was coming to light again because of what was happening at home, she could WhatsApp. Is it more effective? Not too sure. But I mean, you have clearly defined the difference between a psychologist and a mentor. That a mentor will, walk with you side by side. They will guide you side by side. They will be with you side by side. So I guess psychologists, with the whole let's communicate WhatsApp is sort of picking it up for mentors. But what would you advise people, first, to seek out a mentor or to seek out a psychologist?
My suggestion has always been to seek out professional help first. So the psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, because I've gone through working with counselors to address some of my own issues or dealing with grief. And my experience with the person that I was working with was so positive that I'm recommending that, you know, people that are struggling, say in their case, struggling with grief, I'm recommending that they go and set up an appointment to see this person. And then if they want to have a conversation afterwards, I'm always, you know, I keep my door open so that, you know, you can reach out to me. But I when I just when you raised that question, I was starting to think back, and in almost every single time where somebody has said, well, can I come see you? I don't want to go and see a psychologist. And what I've always said is, let's take that step first. And then once we've taken that step and we have an idea of what does our roadmap look like, then we'll have a conversation about whether or not seeing me is of that. I may not be the right person. And, you know, we need to be able to address that and have that conversation. So
what if someone, for example, like now I'm going to bring social class into the conversation. Someone kind of like and you know, Diana and I spoke about this on Talking Back to Suicide this past Tuesday, because we actually, like in the States, if you're having suicidal thoughts, you can call 988. Yeah, in South Africa, of course, there's, you know, a national line that you can call.
Yeah.
So one of the tasks that we've given each other is we actually want to call these numbers just to get an idea of the experience. Does it help? Because the numbers are growing each year when it comes to suicide, and we want to get to the root of why. So if I do call 988, I want to get an idea of exactly what advice am I getting, exactly what are their procedures, you know, in getting it done. Now, when it comes to a lower class in society who's going through a lot of trauma, and there's a lot of trauma going on there, even in the middle class. So now there's situations where that person can't afford to go see, you know, a good psychologist. Going through government institutions is not working out as well, because, you know, like how you said about, you know, see me in 4 months, that tends to happen. I've experienced that also, not from a psychologist point of view, but from a dermatologist point of view. That was the example I used because I had an experience, one of my friend's wives taking their son to a government hospital, and they told, okay, no, we can only get you an appointment with the dermatologist in a year's time. So we're talking about a year. So we have these sort of challenges as well in society. So but, you know, living in 2024, the message I'm getting out there to, you know, that group of people is to listen to such podcasts if you can, you know, because, you know, it requires, you know, data and good internet connectivity as well. But any means possible, you know, because there is people such as ourselves out there where you can reach out to, you know, like with my clients as well, you know, depending on, you know, I don't charge for everything, you know, and that's the game I'm playing at the moment. Like if you go see a specialist today, they're going to say, okay, you know, you need to pay me, for example, $100 to first come and talk to me. And then it's going to cost you, you know, like another $100 on top of that to actually get, you know, the treatments going. So, you know, I've changed the game with that because, you know, of what I've seen happening, you know, lower class and from my background and where I come from as well, to say, okay, you know what, if you are going through something at the moment and you can't afford to go see, you know, someone who's an expert in that field, like a great psychologist for the moment, let's talk to me first. Let's see what I can do, you know, to take it further from there. And if I can't, I'm grateful that at least I meet like a lot of great people internationally, you know, such as having, you know, Diana as well, who her and I have become great friends. let me bring you online. Let's set up a Zoom meeting. Maybe she can, share her expertise on that. She's a retired child psychologist. She can share something, that can assist that, just to help at that point. But, like how I asked you, whether you would refer a psychologist or a mentor first, I guess it just depends on, what can a person really afford as well.
Uh, to,
A mentor can
to,
be
to
cheap
some,
as well.
because you have to, it's a catch-22. So what I'll always say to people is, if money's going to be an issue, let's take it off the table. So if
Right.
money's going to be an issue, let's take it off the table. And the other part is that if I'm offering a service, I don't want to offer it at a price that sort of cheapens or undermines the value that a person is bringing. So, I've done some things. I've gone from a per hour rate to a per session rate. And I've done that because typically when I'm meeting with people, our conversations go well beyond the hour. And I don't want to be going, checking my watch all the
Yeah, yeah,
time.
yeah,
And that's,
yeah.
that's kind of another thing is I never check my watch. I never check the time when I'm meeting with somebody because we're going to go as long as we need to go as far as talking, with each other. And, and like I said, if money's an issue, we're going to take it off the table.
Yeah, yeah. And I respect you for doing that, not looking at the watch. I
Yeah.
respect you. It means that you really care. It means someone really cares about what you have to say and really wants to help you with what's
Yeah.
going on in your life right now. So I respect that. Okay, so basically, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, right? All that we have spoken about now can be, categorized under PTSD. Yes or no? You know, is most post
Yeah, it's close to falling under PTSD. I think we talked, or I talked certainly a little bit about grief, um, and we've talked a bit about mentoring and how it kind of fits into that whole storyline. So I think, though, that we could dive deeper into PTSD because um, and I don't think that and I don't mean this between you and I, but I mean people, society in general, I don't think, number one, understands post-traumatic stress, and number two, knows how to deal with it if they are experiencing it. And like I'm working with, I'm a mentor with American corporate partners in the U.S. and helping military personnel transition from service to civilian life. And when I meet with them and we have conversations, I understand now why they're experiencing what they're experiencing from a PTSD perspective, because what they've seen, witnessed, and been a part of is horrific. And they don't always have the coping mechanisms that they need in order to be able to deal with it.
And in your book, You Are Not Alone, you touch on PTSD.
Yes.
You go into depth about it. And that's because, it's also coming from personal experience.
Yeah.
So, you giving people within the book, a direction how to actually heal from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like as I said, it was a topic that on the Talking Back to Suicide podcast, if you accept to join us in January, we're going to spend like a good hour and a half, just on the topic, alone. But to summarize it, we can summarize it on this podcast, in relation to your book, of course. What are the best methods, or the top 2-3 methods to actually going about treating PTSD? keeping it closely linked to your book, of course, because that's why, we are.
Yeah, it's I think it comes back to, it's okay if, and I think for myself, I wish that I had the support structure in place that's in existence today for a lot of people. So I think when I take a look at what we had in You Are Not Alone, and a lot of what I've identified in the research and stuff that I've done is that if I'm suffering or dealing with post-traumatic stress, I need to, as I describe it, I need to come out of the closet, ask for help, extend my hand and say, I need help. And if I'm having suicidal thoughts, I need to, obviously reach out even further to find the right people, not just a person, but the right people that's going to help me navigate through the landmines that I'm obviously going to be facing as a result of my post-traumatic stress. So I think feeling strong enough, comfortable enough, and willing to step outside of that closet and ask for help is one of the main things. Understanding, what is post-traumatic stress, and how can it have an impact on me in my personal life. So understanding some of that, knowing that there are other people out there, i.e. mentors, that are in a place or in a position where they can walk beside you as you are going on your healing journey. And you have a story that needs to be told. And by telling the story, you're going to it's going to help you're going to find that it's very therapeutic, and it's going to help you with your healing process. So that would be 2 or 3 things that,
Yeah. I guess, point one is extremely important, is to actually bring awareness to the fact that I am suffering with this at the moment. Bring awareness to it, accept it. By accepting it, it's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't make me a coward, doesn't make me, let's just say, if you're male, it doesn't make me less of a man, to society. So step one would be bring awareness to it, and then actually get into the root of, why am I suffering with it? Which could be thousands of reasons why, but you have to get, to the root. I've actually got like a whole lot of notes that I compiled together on the topic of PTSD, setting up for the podcast, but that, we'll bring up on the correct platform, actually for it. Okay, thanks for sharing that. Like, I just, it was like with PTSD, like I first started to get intrigued about it when I should hear about, all the troops from the army coming back from war and what they were going through. And I'm like, okay, this is something serious actually at the moment, and then you sort of see it happening in like normal society as well, but people haven't really brought awareness to it or even gotten to the root of the issue itself. So besides being a phenomenal author, organic writer, talking from personal experience, you're also an entrepreneur. You currently have 2 businesses as well that's, in play at the moment. Do you want to touch on that and what you're doing there? TalentC, I know, is one of it.
Yeah. And I'm assuming is the other one the international mentoring community, or okay.
International. So, is there more?
Oh, well, I hope not, but you never know. So TalentC was started back in 2009, 2010, and it's primarily focused on all things mentoring. So mentoring people at all levels in an organization, mentoring individuals, helping organizations set up mentoring programs. So anything, as I describe it, anything mentoring related, that's TalentC. The international mentoring community has gone through some shifts in who they are, or who we want them, or who we need them to be. And it goes back to 2009, 2010 was one of my goals or objectives was to create a independent body for the certification of mentors. And so I started back then in working with an organization in the United States that helped. We created a certification based on knowledge for mentors, and we worked together for probably 5-6 years, and then they kind of went their way, and I ended up partnering with a gentleman in Calgary, Alberta, to provide mentor certification based on competence. And so we've gone through a number of iterations of what does that look like, what's the process for going through to become a international certified mentor. And so, like I said, we've done a number of iterations around that. So, excuse me, it's all about creating a community of internationally certified mentors that can be able to deal with that. And the other part is, of course, is that I'm also working on the creation of mentoring being part of the support structure for mental health, and actually creating the function or role of a grief mentor. So somebody that can work with people that are grieving the loss of a loved one, or just grief in general.
That's wow. I never knew you could become a certified mentor.
Yeah. I just this past month here, December, excuse me, I just went through the recertification process. So every 2 years, I have to recertify in order to keep my mentor certification.
So, is it like mentoring on any topic?
Yes.
That your business does? So I could like apply to become a mentor, and then based on whatever the topic may be, like what do I specialize in?
You can specialize, but you can also go through and become excuse me, and become a certified mentor, and you would work in all the different, like I do leadership mentoring. I will go into an organization that I do not have experience in, and I will mentor their employees, because it's all about the mentoring process, the mentoring concepts. And once you've mastered those, you can, for the most part, mentor anywhere.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned, organizations, because you focus on organizations. Like bulk of the work, I know this is off topic for the listeners. I'm also just curious myself. Bulk of the work that I've been doing over the last couple of years has always been like because I had a natural feel for it, not because I was qualified in it, And there's been situations also where, like, I've been at a company and the company staff is like all over the place. They don't have the correct mindset. They're not focused. They just divided and it's a complete mess. And then, I would come in and just like have a chat individually, with each person. And then I would like chat to them as a group. And then we'll come to a solution how the whole team can actually like work together in harmony. So I'm curious about that. So how would someone like me apply?
So there's a self-assessment that I could send you the link to. So what you basically are doing is you're doing this self-assessment where you are going through, I think there's 75 action outcome statements that it's basically describing the profile of a mentor. And so you excuse me, you would go through it and you would say, yes, I have this particular skill. No, I don't. If you say, yes, I have it, then you have to document where you got the experience from. If you don't have it, then we have to figure out how we're going to get you the training, the education that you need in order to be able to turn that no to a yes. And so you do all those, and then once you've completed that, then you get into doing, there's 2 or 3 exercises, I'll use that term, that you would have to complete. And then finally the last one is, and they're all what we call part of your portfolio as a mentor. And then finally your last one is you actually go through a verification panel it's usually about 2 hours long, and the panel will ask you questions based on a case study that you will have been given to go through. So it's a bit more rigor than what your normal certification process, because it kind of follows the International Standards Organization pathway, for lack of a better choice of words. So
okay, please send me the link. I would love to give this a shot.
Sure.
I would love to give this a shot. No, thanks for sharing that. And when it comes to TalentC, so you deal with organizations and you deal with individuals. So how do people reach out to you at TalentC for your mentoring services?
They can find me through LinkedIn. If they do a search on my name and that, I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. They can go to my website at www.TalentC, so the word talent and the letter C on the end, .ca. And then finally, probably the easiest way is to just send me an email and say, can we talk? And that would be at Doug.Lawrence, LAWRENCE, at TalentC, so the word talent, letter C on the end, .ca, and I'll get back to you right away.
And let's just say now, hypothetically speaking again, I reach out to you via email before the conversation actually starts, between us. You will, of course, share, the fees associated with it.
Yes.
And so on.
Yeah.
That's all shared. Okay, no, that's also quite cool. And I mean, there's no limit to any type of mentoring. Correct. Okay, no, that's quite cool. You're doing a lot of awesome stuff, I must say.
Thank you.
You're doing a lot of awesome stuff. So you are not alone. If you had to sum up the book for listeners, what would you say? Who is this for? Why is this for you?
It's that we all have some element of mental health challenges that we're facing. And what this book will do, it will help you identify what that looks like from a personal perspective. And it will show you that you don't need to, just like the title, you are not alone, and you need to, reach out, ask a mentor to walk beside you and help guide you. And so the book would appeal to somebody, obviously to individuals, but there's also a message in there for organizations as well, to be able to say, you need to have like when I go to implement mentoring in an organization today, part of what I do as part of that implementation is we also speak to and address having a support structure as part of that mentoring program that they want to have in the organization.
Okay. One more thing with regards to your businesses. So it's 100% international.
Yes.
100% international, not just based in Canada. So any of the listeners, depending where you're based, because the podcast is diverse, when
Sure.
you look at the data. So, I mean, anyone can actually, reach out to you or apply, in my case,
Yeah.
to become a certified mentor.
Yeah.
That's quite cool. And where can people find your book?
It's available on Amazon.com and Amazon.ca. And I believe for those listeners who are more international, that you should be able to find it if you go on the Amazon site specific to the country that you're from.
And is it hard copy, soft copy, Kindle version as well available?
Kindle is available, and it's also soft copy.
Nice. Okay, definitely. I will share that link, of course, within the descriptions. But I mean, yeah, this is definitely a book, for anyone going through any form of mental illness at the moment to, check out. Or if it's much more deeper and you need to connect with someone, you're more than welcome to reach out to Doug. If you're unable to get through to Doug, please reach out to me and I will connect you with Doug. People do have those issues sometimes, but you're more than welcome, to do that. But of course, I will also mention that in the description of the podcast as well. Is there anything else that you would love to share with the listeners before we conclude?
No, I think we've done a good job. We've covered a lot of interesting stuff, so that's good.
Yeah. No, definitely. It's if you get to it, within an hour you cover so much and there's so much value,
Yeah.
in it alone. Now it's up to you, which is what I elaborate a lot with when it comes to the audience. It's now only up to you to take action on it.
Yeah.
If you are going through this, go and make the effort to purchase the book, read the book. That's how you actually going to help yourself, develop yourself, and prepare yourself for the future, being in a good state of mind.
Yeah.
We can do so much. I can do so much as a podcaster. Yes, I can bring on a phenomenal guest like Doug Lawrence, and he's going to share his expertise. He's going to talk about his book. He's going to talk about his businesses. He's going to talk about his past trauma. But it's not going to be enough for you for what you're going through. You need to now take action. Take action, to develop yourself and fix whatever may be going on. But wherever may be going on. I'm sure you can agree with that,
Yeah, I do.
A lot of people fail to take action. That's their shortfall. In my experience, a lot of people fail to take action. I should always say, I can speak to a room that has 100 people in it, okay? But there's only going to be 10, and all of them will have, their notebooks. They'll be taking down notes. But I would say 10% are actually going to go back home and take action with what they have written down and with what they have learned from that seminar, whatever it is, that's how I see it. That's how I really see it. Because the moment we just step out of that room, we're feeling motivated, inspired, we go home, we forget about it all. So, guys, take action, especially if you are going through any form of mental illness at this present moment in time. So, Doug, it's been a pleasure meeting with you virtually. I will also be sending you an email and I will CC Dan Kaufman in it to please arrange, for you to join us on Talking Suicide in January. I would love to have you on there to focus on the topic of PTSD. It's been 2 months now that we've been wanting to get to it, but because of the guests that we have had online and other matters we had to discuss, and then we're also going to close off the podcast on the 21st of December, and then have the next guest the first week of January. I think it was the first week of January, but she will say, which dates are available in January. It will be on a Tuesday around this time or an hour later, depending on your schedule as well. And I would definitely love for you to come on to just touch more on PTSD.
Well, and just so we can take that off yes, I'm honored to be a part of that.
Thank you so much. It will really mean a lot to me and Dan as well. Thank you. So I'll send you an email right away after the podcast, and we can take it from there. And
Sounds good.
please also forward me the link for the mentorship. I would love
Yeah,
to give it a shot.
I'll send. Yeah, I'll
I
send
would
it
really
to
love
you.
to get it a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just thinking about it now. So I'm also a DJ. I'm a professional club and private DJ, and I do events. And one of the venues I'm actually subcontracted to. So I've been with them for about 2 months now. But it's a mess. It's a mess when it comes to the people. It's a
Yeah.
mess. They need mentoring. They honestly, truly need mentoring, whether the owner wants to admit it or not, or the staff wants to admit it or not, but they need mentoring because it's chaotic. It's chaotic. They're not in sync with each other. They're not working with each other. They're always pushing the blame on each other. And I'm talking about the different departments now. There's no accountability. So, and it doesn't make sense that even though the venue itself is successful and they're bringing in clients each and every single week, and they're bringing in 4 to 6 clients each and every single week, but it's no point if the people are not working together correctly, they're not sync,
Yeah.
and some of them are hurting inside, but they're smiling on the outside, because I have individual chats with them, what they're not happy about, and it comes down to the culture of the venue itself.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to fix that culture, you're going to start losing all the A players, you're going to bring in the F players, and the business will go down. And from having 4 to 6 clients, it's going to come down to 0. Ultimately, that's what happens. But yeah, so I would love to give that a shot. I would really love to give that a shot.
One of the
Anyway,
one.
No,
I
no,
was just
come-
gonna. I was just going to say one of the things I do as part of the implementation of a mentoring program is we do a culture assessment to determine mentor readiness. My
Yeah.
last thought.
Yeah, nice. No, a lot of businesses need it, but they're so ignorant to the fact that they need it, because a lot of business owners are only worried about bottom line and not about what's happening psychologically within the business itself. And how is the culture at the moment?
Yeah.
Is the culture good? Are people happy? Do people want to come here every morning or not? They need, for me, I feel businesses need to have like a mentoring officer, create a new designation for that business.
Yeah.
They need it. But yeah, so we'll get to that. But Doug, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for accommodating me, moving up the podcast, a few days.
Yeah.
But it's been truly a pleasure chatting to you, and we're definitely going to be chatting again. So yeah, I'll be looking forward to that. And keep
Sounds
doing
good.
what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate your contribution to humanity and to the world.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.